Before recognising Alexandra to speak, I just wanted to thank her for stepping in. William Ragg, the Conservative backbench MP, was meant to be speaking here tonight. And when I opened my emails this morning after sifting through some copious amounts of both hate mail and supportive mail, I saw that he's busy writing some letters. So I asked Alexandra to speak, little knowing it was her birthday today. So happy birthday, Alexandra. And I hereby Alexandra Galloway, Magdalen College, ex-returning officer, to continue the case for the opposition.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight's debate is personal. It speaks to both our educational backgrounds and to the choices that many of us will make in the future for our own children. But by making this debate about the failures of private schools to solve the larger issues of inequality in society, the proposition have tried to play on your emotions tonight. They have focused on charitable status, on suggesting that private schools mostly do not affect educational outcomes. But for them to win this evening, they must show not merely that that private schools have been socially divisive, or that they offer greater opportunities to their pupils. They must show that they have been a public disaster, and they have failed. To properly examine the motion at hand, we must look at whether private schools can truly be held to blame for the real public disasters of the lack of social mobility and the lack of quality education available for every child in the United Kingdom today. The motion tonight is, this House believes private schools are a public disaster. I ask you, what is a public disaster? I would suggest that something as catastrophic as a disaster implies both the government and the public have a collective responsibility to take action. And yes, we have some of the highest rates of income inequality compared to wealthy countries. Social mobility in this country is so poor that it would take 5 generations of progress from a child from a poor UK family compared to only 2 generations in Scandinavian countries to reach the national average wage. No one doubts that this is a national shame. But do we condemn private schools for this? The proposition have talked a lot about the issue of the huge inequalities facing British society. And of course, a more equal society where everyone, and I mean everyone, has the ability and opportunity to reach their full potential is something we should all support and strive for. However, they failed on 2 counts. Firstly, they have not properly shown their assumption that private schools do in fact further inequality to be true. Most private schools are currently undertaking extensive programs aimed in fact at improving social mobility. The creation of free schools, as been mentioned earlier, linked with independent schools, allows the sharing of teachers, attempts to raise standards, and even more crucially, attempts to raise aspirations for those in those schools. Similarly, the provision of bursaries and scholarships, admittedly only helping a select few, but still, they encourage those from less privileged backgrounds to seek out the benefits available at these schools. The proposition has not addressed the fact that private schools serve merely as a symptom of the disease of inequality facing us today. We cannot choose to blame private schools for the failures of our society as a whole. But that's not to say that private schools cannot, and as I've shown, at least try, as they have done, to address these problems. Everyone, private schools included, should have a moral motivation to help tackle the larger issues of society. We should be incentivizing private schools to continue this work, to take further steps, and to widen those who gain direct benefit from their existence. Secondly, if we side with the proposition's argument tonight and agree that private schools are a public disaster, then the onus must be on you and on the government to make drastic changes. On the government to consider prohibition of private schools. Can we really say this would be an improvement to our society? Aside from the obvious logistical and financial issues it would cause, do we really want to condemn the educational excellence these organizations strive for and achieve? Attacking private schools doesn't serve to raise standards at the schools where pupils are not given the same opportunities. Finally, I suggest you just look around you this evening. You're members of one of the foremost universities in the world. You are sat in a debating chamber which has nearly 2 centuries of history. We should be celebrating this excellence, all excellence in its many forms. But more importantly, we should be striving to bring the opportunity and potential for excellence to as many young people as we can. But tonight, the real question, the underlying question of this motion we must ask ourselves is, what does a modern society require from its education system? In an ideal world, we want school pupils to have the opportunity to study a wide range of subjects, become well-educated individuals, able to follow their interests, able to follow their intellectual curiosity. We want school leavers to be politically engaged members of society who are able to understand current issues and able to contribute substantively to the economic growth of the country, to gain a higher standard of living for everyone. This is not the situation in Britain today. While there are indeed many excellent state schools, and in fact, many poor independent schools, on average, there's a huge, huge difference in the quality of education provided. Yes, as we've heard tonight, we have excellent state schools. We have grammar schools which send far more pupils to Oxford, for example, than some of the poorest independent schools. But the important thing is that at any high-achieving school, but at the best private schools in particular, there's an environment created where students can achieve that full potential and leave as highly educated individuals. Society as a whole benefits from this promotion of excellence and from the positive contributions that these individuals are able to go on to make to society. And this doesn't just have to be in an economic sense, or even in any particularly measurable sense that can be broken down into figures. In fact, we see that private schools are often the main promoters of subjects like classics or even modern languages, which are being studied less and less at state schools. For example, 60% of pupils in state schools study no foreign language at all, compared with only 16% in private schools. Continuing to teach these subjects from a young age, and thus maintaining our strong cultural traditions, is imperative to our understanding of history and of our society and its culture. It makes us richer as a society as a whole to value this level of excellence and to give our school pupils the chance to study these subjects. However, what is of course missing from these are all the pupils who are stuck in mediocre, subpar, poor schools, without the opportunities and benefits of a high-quality education available to them. Which brings us to this. The real public disaster facing us today is the failure of the government to provide a high-quality education to every school pupil. The obligation should be on the government to improve the quality of all schools, to make them a more attractive proposition, and ultimately to ensure that every single child in this country benefits from a quality education. In the United Kingdom today, we see that the entrenched cultural divisions, as we've seen tonight, between those who view state schools as providing a lesser quality education somehow, and those who view independent schools as elitist. Perhaps we do better looking to countries like Switzerland, which, by all accounts, highly educated, prosperous nation, but a nation which manages to operate a dual system without disadvantaging those who go to state schools or to schools in areas that may not be as well off. It balances the needs of the majority in state schools with the minority of those who are privately educated, without falling back onto the same easy cliches or preconceptions we have here. The key, though, to this system is it is federally organized. By moving decision-making power closer to the pupils themselves, schools are better able to select a more interesting curriculum, to make the decisions which have the most benefit for their students, similar to the greater autonomy enjoyed by private schools here. Ladies and gentlemen, to vote with the proposition tonight means you're allowing yourself, and more importantly, allowing the government to abdicate responsibility for the real public disasters facing us. The systematic inequality and lack of social mobility facing us today are shameful, frankly, and our government is not doing enough to tackle these. But to put that blame on private schools and to suggest that they are a public disaster is wrong. It fails to recognize the excellent education that many of them strive to achieve, undermines their attempts at addressing the issues of wider social mobility, which is a cause that they themselves cannot seek to solve, but are at least making steps, and to hopefully diversify their own social makeup, to give all children the high-quality education they deserve. For those reasons, I beg you to oppose the motion tonight.